the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to the June meeting of the Radnor Parks and Rec Board. In your pack is a copy of the minutes from last month. If you would take a quick second to take a look at them, and then I'll be happy to receive a motion to approve them. Motion?
Sure. Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Tammy, you kind of have to give us your report, and I know you haven't been feeling well, and so don't kill your voice. Do what you can, what you feel comfortable with. We talked yesterday. I tried to do most of the talking, so you didn't need to.
Thank you for that.
So,
no, I appreciate it. Well, in addition to some of the things that are listed in the report, I guess just to outline the highlights, really in May was Wheels of Wayne. The event was postponed, so we did go on the rain date, but it certainly didn't do any damage to the event. We had a spectacular day. Sorry you couldn't be there, Chris.
yeah,
I know it's one
sorry,
of your favorite events.
Yeah, it is my favorite.
We had like over 115, I think it was about 115 registered vehicles. Lots of great things on display, great vendors, great food. Easily 3,000-4,000 people in attendance. It was really a great day. The best in show vehicle was Warren Rubin's 1929 Packard. And then our first runner-up car was a 1953 Packard. And then I think our truck was like a 1966 F-150. So lots of really great things were on display.
Cool.
So I know we have more information up on the website. And then Cornerstone was the best pulled pork of Wheels of Wayne 2019. And From the Boot was the best pizza, Wheels of Wayne 2019. So and that was our 7th year. So it was a great event and highlight of the month, of course. Obviously, Radnor Day Camp right now, knee deep in the planning for it and a lot of the specialty camps that are going to be going on this summer. I know I gave you guys a copy of the brochure and talked about some of those last month, so I won't go into too much detail. We did have our camp night for parents last night. We had easily 50-60 parents in attendance, which has been generally what our population is for that. A lot of new parents come out. Gives them an opportunity to receive the welcome packet, which we distribute to everybody. It's up on the internet, electronically distributed. Contains a lot of really great information to help folks prepare for camp. So everybody has a copy of that tonight if you want to take a look at it later. Right now there's 190 campers registered in the camp, and we're diligently getting ready, working with the school district for access to the facilities. Next week we start our training.
Did you get everything you needed with regard to the school district and facilities?
For day camp, so far so good.
Great.
We actually meet tomorrow at 1:30 at Radnor Elementary, so that's where we'll do our walkthrough. We'll understand any dynamics of the facility that may affect our usage, allocate our classrooms, our office, things like that. Then we actually train our staff next week, actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So Saturday will be our first day. We'll be in the school. All of our equipment will be at the school. All of our staff will be at the school. And we'll get set up and start to get the classrooms all up and running so they're ready for Monday the 24th, which is when camp actually opens. So
There's a counselor in training program,
There is. It's called Leadership in Training.
and they pay to be in the camp, and then they,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, they actually pay to attend camp,
Mhm.
so they get an opportunity to shadow a lot of the specialty coordinators throughout the early part of attending the camp. They also undergo a lot of leadership, interpersonal dynamic type training, team building games, things to start to get them thinking about themselves and their leadership skills, and then obviously learning to interact and work with some of the younger campers. So usually by week 3, they're already starting to work within their groups in terms of assisting some of the leaders and the specialty coordinators. They're never alone with the kids because we have hired staff that actually, that's what they're at the camp to do. So it's really only a fraction of the time that they actually get to be with the kids. So they're still being a camper,
Right.
but they also get to take on a lot of leadership skills too. So far that program has actually been growing pretty significantly. So we're maxed out again at that age group, which is great. Something to do for the teens,
Yeah.
which is always a tough dynamic in the community. So we're proud of that. So like I mentioned, a lot of the other summer specialty camps are going to kick off. We also have the Great American Backyard Campout event, which is going to happen this Saturday. So from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon all the way up to the time when the participants bed down, we have a whole bunch of great activities for them to participate in. The Skunk Hollow Garden gets involved and they do a scavenger hunt. A lot of the leadership scouts, they do a lot of like camping 101, how to start a fire without using a match and a lighter, different things like that. Creek walks. We have the Delaware Valley Astronomers Association that comes and they do night sky watch in the evening. We have a campfire, we have s'mores. It's a whole lot of fun. So we have about 200, 250 registered, which is about average for what we get for that event. Then our summer concerts will start in July 10th, O'Connor. Then on July 17th, we're over at Clement Crone Park. We have a children's concert. We'll also have a character visit by the Berenstain Bears. We'll see who draws the short straw to dresses the Berenstain Bears from our department that night. Probably going to be me as one of them again, but that's okay. It comes with the job and it's all good.
You're not Papa Bear, I guess.
I was Brother Bear at the Jan Berenstain plaque dedication, which was very hot. Very hot. Then Night at the Ballpark comes around on July 24th, so that's always a big one over here at Engie with the fireworks, and of course a partnership with the Little League organization. So we have a busy summer planned.
Thank you. And Bob, I know you had talked with the superintendent, so thanks for your help with
No problem.
camp in terms of helping secure facilities. I know that was a concern for a while. Tammy, let me just reiterate something a lot of us have said in the past. Not only the creativity of these events that you put on, but the thoroughness with which you plan them is second to none. And people in this community appreciate them, and we do also. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to Heather DeCanzio, our program supervisor, and Tracy Kroom, who's our program coordinator, and of course Lizette Subak, who's our recreation assistant, because they're aces, believe me, and without them, it doesn't happen either.
You got good staff. Great. Thank you. Other reports for our group. Claire, anything on Shade Tree to report?
Not since we.
Last minute.
Yeah.
John, anything from the Board of Commissioners you'd like to talk about?
We just submitted another grant for the Radnor Trail. That went in Friday, I think. And want to hear back from you if you have any comments on the McLean Park Preserve. And Monday we have a special meeting again, talk about budget and the capital programs. So, and you'll see there's funding in there for all the trails, trail projects, and several parks items.
And that's one of those public special meetings?
Yeah. It'll
That's
be
going
up
to deal
here.
with capital again?
Yep.
What time is that?
6:30.
6:30, I think. yeah.
Up here again?
Yeah.
Correct. That's Monday? It is.
And it's online if you want to look at the packet.
Can I ask a question about the trail? I wasn't able to be on the conference call yesterday, I guess.
Neither was I.
Oh, okay. That answers that. That answers that. I just wanted to know what the turnaround time, if you knew, for this past grant. I did see that email, if there was.
Yeah, it's not quick, but the good news is we've already gotten feedback from Gene.
Mhm.
So some corrections or modifications that'll help the application.
And this is the extension piece?
Yes. Yeah, as I mentioned to you before, we're kind of changing the approach rather than go under Radnor Chester. At this time, we're breaking the project up into pieces so that they're more fundable. So this is from Radnor Chester to the end, but not going under. It'll just ramp down. There's enough room to ramp down off Radnor Chester on the other side.
And that'll take you up to one of the walls, basically.
Well, not quite.
Not quite.
There's a spot where it's a natural, because then you do have some incline, and there'll be a turnaround area and some benches, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
And then you all saw the videos we made, thanks to Claire and Bill.
I did not see the
I haven't seen
videos.
Have they been
Are they online, Tammy?
I think Tammy-
21? I haven't
Tammy
seen-
sent the link out to you guys.
Really?
I don't think I
didn't see
did,
it.
I thought you did.
Oh, I thought you did.
I thought you did.
I know I got the, you sent
Well,
me.
you
I know
did,
you
yeah.
sent it, but for some reason I thought the Parks Board was on it, but
No.
we can get it out.
Oh, I thought I saw
That's fine,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to see it.
Oh, I need to see Claire
Yeah.
on that video.
And Laura Luker, right? And
Yes, and Laura Luker did.
And Bill Quinn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
The format basically was, we started each of the 3 programs with the on-site, and then I interviewed like Bob Thomas, Peter Simone, and what's her name from Meliora? Marianne? No. I can't remember. The lady from Meliora is the lead engineer.
Okay.
Trying to just explain to people. Bob was the most fun, of course, because he is Mr. Trail. Matter of fact, it was tough constraining the time.
He's good. He's a good resource.
It was
Okay.
fabulous.
Thank you. Chuck, good evening.
Good evening, sorry I'm late.
No problem. Anything on the school board you'd like to share with us?
I'm just happy that we were able to work out the summer camp program.
Right.
We're still moving along.
Just glad you didn't fall off the stage last night, so that was good.
Yeah. Everything went smoothly as far as we know.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Any other reports or boards would anybody like to speak about this evening? Okay, new business. Willows Park Preserve Group. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to watch the commissioners meeting on Monday nights, but as you all know from the emails that we've been sending back and forth, Willows Park Preserve came back to the Board of Commissioners and asked for some changes to their existing lease agreement. The largest change being a change in term. This was the lease that was signed last June, I believe. It was a 10-year lease for them to lease the premises. The township was putting in $1.8 million. They had $1 million pledge from a donor, and then they were going to go out and raise additional funds, fix the mansion up, and start their programming a couple years out. During the year in between, and Tammy, Bob, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but during that year, since that's happened, been signed, there's been a number of studies done to the mansion with regard to the interior, the exterior, the roof, the water and sewer pipes leading up to it, and all the challenges that exist with that building as it stands today. And I believe that the cost estimates to do all the work that they wanted to do, rose much higher than anybody thought they were going to, or at least anybody was willing to admit that they thought they were going to cost back at the time. So I believe that the group came back to the Board of Commissioners and asked to lengthen the term at least to 25 years. A couple other changes, smaller changes in that lease document. Basically, they said it was hard for them to raise money with a 10-year lease. People would be willing to fund money for capital improvements like that, big dollars to do that. Wanted to make sure that 10 years from now, the township didn't take it back and change it after that money was put in there. So they were considering those changes, and at a meeting about 3 to 4 weeks ago, when they were doing some consideration of it, it was suggested, I believe by Bob, to the board that they kick it back to us to have us review the requested changes for the lease agreements. And just to be, quite honest, I said I did not want to do that because I thought that we had not supported that lease in its current form a year ago when it was approved. However, after further conversations and asking for more complete information that I passed along in emails to everybody here, we would go ahead and take a look at that. So that's been distributed over the past couple of weeks. Really having watched that meeting on Monday night, John, I know you weren't there, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the meeting or not, but the lease.
I've been
is-
avoiding it for obvious reasons.
The lease, the change to the lease is a done deal, in my opinion. That's gonna happen at the next meeting a couple weeks from now. There's been a couple of changes that have been requested by one of the board members at that meeting on Monday nights. Jake, I think, had requested a couple changes, but the consensus of that board was to finish with the first reading, have one change that Jake had asked for. Bob, can you remind me what that one change was?
24/7.
24/7.
That they would have access to the mansion 24/7.
Right, right.
That was a concern that we had with that.
So they want the 24/7 access, or they aren't gonna get.
Willows Park wants that, and Jake wasn't so happy to provide that for him as concern for the neighbors, and also wondering why they would need that 24/7 access to it, et cetera. But again, I'm open to what this board would want to do. I'm going to share my opinion with you, and then we can go from there. My opinion is that we shouldn't spend much time on this because it's already done, and they're going to vote to approve it with a strong majority in 2 weeks. I've received comments from Bill Remfrey, from Mary, and you guys got my comments as well. We've all seen those comments. I'd like to open it up for any other comments that anybody has or would like to submit. And then I'd like to close that with I will take responsibility to take all of our comments, put them together, and pass them back to the board of commissioners. And in my opinion, there's no sense us spending any more time talking about it because I think it is a done deal. If you guys would like, if you differ with me and disagree with me and would like to talk about it, I'm happy to do that. We got all the time in the world, so it's not that I'm trying to rush it. I just don't feel that this board, this body has had concerns about it. We've expressed those, and the comments that I've seen from myself and from Mary and Bill continue on that same vein. I don't see those changes happening. So I'm done with my soapbox, and I'll pass it over to anybody else that's some
Chris, I would like to add one other, another significant change that happened is, in the past, the work within the mansion was going to be a joint effort between the township and them. That was creating a lot of difficulty with how do you do the work, where does the funding go, things like that. So they came back and said, we'll take care of everything inside. All we ask is the township take care of a few items outside. Assuming that the estimates are correct, we could actually get some of that 1.8 back. But I don't.
I'll give you $10 if you
No.
get any of that
Yeah.
1.8 back, John.
I'm just-
right now, I promise.
just
you, I'll
telling
give
you.
$10.
Put that on the table.
Here's the numbers we know right now. And, for example, the study that was done that the township funded was really the gold standard. I mean, and that's why the price was as high as it was. For example, they had new power lines coming in, and they were going to upgrade the kitchen to be, high voltage. They don't need that to do their job. So that's a significant savings that they would have wanted us to do. So mainly it's the fire water, potable water, and sewer are the three major items that the township will be taking care of.
Okay.
And we had some silly discussions about snow plowing.
Yeah, and
I can't get.
those things they're all identified in our comments,
Yes.
and you'll see those, John, when we share them with you,
Good.
depending on what this group, directs me to do with regard to that. So
Good,
I'll
thanks.
open up the floor. Claire.
Do you mind if I start, Mary?
No, go right ahead.
The reason I wanted to jump in here is one, I so appreciate your comments on the lease itself, yours, Chris's, and everyone else's. It was Jim's and Bill Remfrey's are
Right,
all in keeping of what we've been saying all along. That being said, I find myself getting a little lost in the actual lease language and all the things that are going on with the lease, and I trust the township and this board that the lease will be vetted out with the solicitor, et cetera. I do have some comment about concern about long-term picture. So if the lease gets signed, it sounds like it's going to be, and the perception of, is the Willow Parks Preserve, I'm getting some feedback on the street that it's kind of an us-them kind of thing, that they see it as a, we're an us, Willow's Park Preserve, and that the township is a them, and we're part of that. And that the idea of is, will Willow's Park Preserve be sustainable 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years? Or is it the idea that they're gonna do all this up front, do what they're gonna do, get the lease, do the improvements, and then turn it back over to the township? So my concern is not necessarily the ins and outs of the lease, which is real, and it exposes, I still think it exposes the township at places, but is this township gonna get stuck with some kind of maintenance that is insurmountable, and upkeep and care when the Williams Park Preserve evaporates? I'm not saying it will,
Right.
but
That's a great question, and it's an organization that's only been in existence for under 2 years, and I don't think there's any way to predict. Their intent is to make these changes and to run the mansion up there and to interact with Pam and her staff for any township events, but they're in control and they run the facility
but have they,
for those 25 years.
have they said they will be sustainable for 25
Well, how can they
years?
say
really
that?
they know.
They've only been in existence
So-
for 2 years, and they've already changed their board structure
Structure.
over once, so.
And it's a
And that's
handful
one of the things that was pointed out in our comments.
And it's a handful of people. Not to say that, I mean, the website looks really fun and great and looks like a great place. But we have other places in the township, Wayne Arts Center, that has those kind of events and all of those kinds of things. So that's my biggest concern.
And I
is
think your
long-term.
concern is actually referred to, referenced in Bill's comments that
Yes.
was sent out late today. So I'll reread that and then make
Great.
sure that I put your comment in there, because I think that's important as well, as
Okay.
the concern about their sustainability as an organization and what might fall back on the township. And I think staff has those same concerns,
Okay.
from what I've heard.
Thanks for letting me go.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I should think it would hurt their fundraising opportunities, for anybody who's considering, as you said earlier, investing money and hoping for, a long-term investment to pan out. I mean, if they can bail on 90 days' notice, I'm not sure I want to support that.
Right.
So that kind of, I would think, hurts them. I understand why they need to bail, or want to bail if they need to bail, but that would, I think that would be something that would chill me as someone who would want to invest major dollars in this. If the organization I'm giving money to can just bail out of this entire project with 90 days notice.
And, I appreciate those thoughts and concerns. What I'm trying to do is, we haven't been asked to opine on any of that. We've only been asked to opine on the change to request in this lease document. It's already signed, the original lease. The Board of Commissioners agreed to move forward with this group, so we can't change that, and I don't think they really care what we think about that. So, again, I'm happy to talk about it here with this group, and if there was public here, we'd ask for public participation, but that's not going to change, to the best of my understanding at this point.
Another concern, and I won't go over all my 25 comments here, but a lot of my concerns are, I think, possibly just inartful drafting, and the lease doesn't say, and this is what gets, arbitrated or mediated or litigated, this thing right here, not what's in their heads. It may not say what was intended, and I would hope that our solicitor or the Board of Commissioners would fix the language so that it says what everybody isn't even arguing about, that it ought to say, so that it says it accurately. I mean, I hope that there are just some poorly drafted sections in here, sections on public access and how often actual real-life Radnor residents can be assured that they are going to be able to use this facility, and things of that nature. So I don't know, John, I mean, is actual careful drafting so that we're not litigating ambiguities, or they're not litigating ambiguities? Is that something that they're open to? I mean, there are some lawyers on the board. I should think that they would appreciate that, a poorly drafted document is a real problem. It creates a lot of mischief.
Having watched a number of the meetings about this, I'm not sure that the lawyers on the board have actually read the document completely.
That's really...
And John Rice seems to not have problems with how it was drafted. Based on just watching these meetings, my plan, unless Bob says I shouldn't do is when I email the Board of Commissioners with our comments, was to copy John Rice in there as well, since he's the one who's really handling the T's and the I's and that kind of stuff. But I agree with you, and I think anybody that's sent their comments in last year, again this year, that's the bulk of it, and there's a lot of items in there that are ambiguous and could cause problems
Could
down the
cause
road.
problems.
I have two questions. I guess one would be who drafted the document? Actually was the person that drafted the document.
WPP's attorney drafted
Their
that.
attorney drafted it with significant comments back by John,
Okay, so it
and
was-
then comments by the Board of Commissioners.
Well, that's kind of water over
Yeah.
the dam, but my second question, you had talked about the 24-hour access, so that's something I think that we can discuss and have direct input on. Is that what we're moving towards, something that, like you said, that the Board of Commissioners wanted to look at that change, and that Jake brought it forward? Were the other commissioners in favor of putting that in? Because I didn't see the meeting either.
They argued about it a little bit, whereas if there was a major event like a wedding and trucks needed to come in and clean up at 2 in the morning after a wedding, or come back to take tents down at 7 in the morning, things like that. You know, the basic gist from WPP was that they, you know, didn't need 24/7 access per se. You know, my concern, those comments are in what I put forth, and I think what Mary put forth as well. You know, one of my concerns was, are they going to have somebody reside in that mansion? And if so, how's the township, you know, feel about that? And who gets, you know, there should be additional rent if somebody's going to live there, that type of thing. So, but that's one of the things that I think Jake kind of brought up, but I'm not sure that it was necessarily accepted by the rest of the commissioners. So I don't see that as being
Even if they do have 24-hour access, they still have to abide by the rules in the township
Yeah.
that.
Can't start work
Right.
24/7.
Right.
The
So,
only, and actually, Bob, I just remembered, the only change that they did agree to make was to take out the language that the WPP will not be able to extend its holistic approach to other areas of the park. That was agreed to by WPP, and Jake brought that up as well on Monday night. So that's the only thing, to the best of my knowledge, that's changed based on the lease agreement that's in front of them as of right now. WPP agreed to take that out.
Yeah, did they talk about the expanded scope of the footprint of the leased premises? Because it's now 3 times bigger than it was back in July.
Went back.
It shrunk.
It shrunk, yeah.
It shrunk back.
Yeah, and one of the attachments they sent to us.
Because it was
had
dipping
a-
way into the, you know,
Yeah,
the
no,
the lawn
it's
area.
shrunk. I
We
think
had
that was-
asked for the staff, and the reason why is because the old pool area and that, there was conversations about them using that area, that should be included in their area. And it was decided that it would be shrunk back.
Yeah, I wasn't too worried about the pool, but it was getting into the woods area behind
Yeah,
there.
Mary, here's the revised area.
This is from
outlines.
last week?
No, that was.
Oh, this is the old one, yeah,
Yeah.
this was,
Yeah.
because originally it was really pretty much the mansion and the hardscaping.
Yeah.
And this, I'm not worried about the pool, but it dipped way down here on this grassy area where, you know, people lie in blankets and study
Right.
and
Yeah,
do
no,
all,
that
you know,
was-
whatever. And I thought, why do they need that any more than the use that they would be entitled to the same way anybody else
Yeah.
would?
So, thank you.
Pool doesn't really trouble me that much. People
Right.
don't tend to use that area.
so I guess my question would be, are there any specific areas within this lease that John, you or Bob, or have anything that you think we would have the ability to have input on that you'd
No,
like us to look at, besides what all the different comments were?
The operating hours is an area of interest for me. The term, I understand. We all have that same question about what do they fail after 2 years, or what do they just decide to go out of business? The principals move. It happens.
Yeah.
And I wish I had that crystal ball.
Well, the
And-
issue I have.
And we talked also amongst the commissioners about, after the thing gets going, charging them a rent. And that didn't pass.
Okay. Well, the only piece I have about extending the lease, I mean, we were, at their last meeting, they had people there who were professional fundraisers, and I placed a lot of confidence in that. So at that point, I don't understand why they didn't realize that having a 10-year lease would be an obstacle. Okay?
Yeah.
Looking at it from that point of view.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's a good point.
So that gives me a little bit of a little hiccup in this piece.
Little hiccup, or?
A little hiccup, yeah, just a little piece. But, yeah, I cannot understand why they came before us and they said, yeah, oh, this will be great, we'll be able to raise funds. We'll be able to get started, remember, all of this, and we agreed, and I agreed proactively with that, because I had placed faith in the fact that this group's coming before us, they're saying they're committed, they have all this. So, seeing that all of a sudden 10 years is not a long enough piece, and giving somebody a piece of property for 25 years is a little bit, it's a long term. If there was some kind of a trigger that after 10 years, if they were meeting all these things and everything was going smoothly and the township hasn't had complaints about anything and everything's fine, and then it would click in, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether
No, you could draft it that way.
you could put that in, that it would then automatically be renewed if this, and this for an additional 10.
Yeah, that was one of my key, as you
Was it?
guys.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, not, I mean, following through on that,
Yeah.
the flip side of them bailing too early is, does everybody agree with the way I'm reading it, that essentially WPP can renew this lease forever? Because all of the ability to trigger 3-year renewals is with them. We don't have the ability to say, no, well, we don't want to renew it for another 3 years, so no. If they want to renew it for another 3 years, every 3 years,
Yep.
it can go on forever.
Yep.
And we can't stop them. The only way we can stop them is if they're breaching their lease or something. But there may be reasons why we think, okay, 25 years with you guys is plenty. We want to do something else here, we're stewards of the township property.
comment.
And they could keep it going forever.
Your comments pointed out, my comments pointed out
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Has anyone solicited the opinion of the township manager and staff from commissioners?
Of course.
So what is the basic opinion? I haven't watched every meeting. What is the township staff positioning on long-term?
We've expressed those to the board.
Okay.
Is there any penalty if they withdraw with 90 days? Is there any penalty? I mean, that's,
Well, they will have lost their investment.
Yeah.
And they have to leave all
And
the-
we also.
But I mean,
They have to
if
leave
I-
all the improvements
Right.
behind.
Individually, they have.
I just have this vision of something,
That's right.
walls going down and then,
No. The way it was set up is, it's a fund as you go. So they have to have the funds to do each phase. That's how we tried to protect against that. Them walking out and leaving us with.
is there
a
precedent in the
ship.
township for this?
Pardon me?
Is there precedent in the township for this? Doing such a,
It's sort of with Kreuzberg, but not nearly the same, no.
I'm also concerned, like, they determine they have is the first 25 major events for the year.
Yeah, like,
And at what point is that where the township and other community members come in and say, now we get, do they take, I just feel like there's an exclusivity there that rules a lot of people and a lot of events out,
It's too
especially
close a
for the Parks and Rec
it
department.
should be flipped the
No,
way
the
it's.
Parks and Rec Department still will have their events.
But I mean, if they say we're taking it, these
Think
prime
about it.
days.
They're gonna have 25 weddings a year there, and they're gonna take every Friday and Saturday night in the nice weather for that.
Is that the unofficial comment?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's how they're gonna raise their money to do the other things. And this is what they say, this is how they're gonna raise their money. to
That's
do
gonna
other
be the
programs,
carrying
et cetera.
charges for the
That's
electric,
gonna
gas,
carry
and
the
all that.
overhead of running the.
Upkeep.
Charging a fortune to have a wedding.
Yes.
Well, what would happen if the township itself said, you know what, we'd like to have fireworks here, say I'm not
Right.
saying you're gonna do this, but we'd like to have fireworks on the 4th of July.
Those
So
were-
what you're saying is that would have to be the 26th event before we
No.
can get it dedicated to us?
No.
The way the document's written is that if there's a disagreement between the township and WPP, WPP gets to make the decision
They win.
about. They
Right,
win.
that was a request that we had. That was a request that we had, because there was concern for that.
Right.
That was-
And that's not been addressed by
Not
the
been
Board of
addressed.
Commissioners, or will that be changed to the best of my
I mean, we've
knowledge?
given priority use to the, we will have given priority use of the mansion to a private group.
Yes.
Right,
That's
so-
just
so-
seems like
so
a real application.
They would have it if they wanted it on the 4th of
Yeah,
July.
yes.
yeah.
If they wanted to schedule.
They trump
something.
us.
Right.
Or the day of fall harvest, or any other event that goes on.
A
Any other
holiday
events that-
party,
yeah.
an Easter egg event.
And they say
Anything
that, they
that
say that they'll
occurs.
work with us, but the document
The
doesn't.
document doesn't say
Doesn't,
that.
doesn't read that way.
Got it.
Well, I would be uncomfortable with that.
So just for this group's benefit, and I apologize, I meant to send this to all of you, and I forgot to do it, but let me just read.
Your document?
No, I just want to read what our recommendation was a year ago.
Okay, all right.
Just so you guys
That's
have
on
it.
my
I
familiar with that,
can't
okay.
find my notes.
The Parks and Rec Board supports Team 10 of the Willows Park Preserve Group proposal regarding the Willows Mansion Park, but recommend that the Board of Commissioners not approve the lease agreement as currently drafted and continue to work with WPP to revise the proposed lease to address this board's concerns. Then we listed 11 concerns, as well as a half dozen other questions that we had discussed. A lot of these same things we're talking about right now, and we sent that to the Board of Commissioners. They made one or two of the changes to the lease and then signed the lease, and that's where it stands today, except for this change for the 25 years. So
Didn't we talk about having a commissioner on their board too, or township people on their board? Was that, I thought we
I
talked
think
There
about.
was
we did
some-
talk
We did
about
talk
having
There was
about
some
some
talk,
kind of
but they have some people in the township involved with them. I know that,
Yeah.
That's Ray.
Thought it was
Ray,
Ray.
yeah, it was coming. I know that Skip
You're done with Ray.
Kunda is on their board. I know that Sarah Pilling is
Michael
involved.
Well, the township,
Michael Antonopoulos is
the
on the
township
board.
has 2 appointees
So-
to their board.
Is that Skip
Oh,
and
okay.
Mike?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's.
Skip and Michael, so the township is 2 employees, right?
And they're both,
They're both intelligent people.
yeah, really good people.
Well, there's some good people.
Yeah, no,
I mean-
No, that's
yeah,
what
no
we,
one's
that was
denying
in the original
intention
lease.
as great
Which is why I'm
intention.
wondering whether this is just sloppy drafting, a lot of it.
It's a good point. Very honestly.
Was it normal is it normal to have it drafted by the person that's leasing it?
Well, anybody can draft it. I mean, it's, if the parties agree to whatever's in there, that's fine. It's all about the parties agreeing. And you may, if you looked at it, there is a provision in there that says, there is sort of a rule of construction of leases and other documents about if there's a dispute, the language is interpreted against the person who drafted it. Sort of a
Okay.
bias that, you know, if you were overbearing, that your reading, you know, takes a back seat or whatever. But that provision's thrown out in this lease. I assume there was mutual, you know, input
Oh, there was a
on
lot
this.
of it.
I don't think that there was one party that was, you know, had undue influence. I just think it's a really badly drafted agreement, surprisingly badly drafted, even from their point of view. It's ambiguous, it's
And I'm shocked.
inconsistent.
I'm shocked that
It's lopsided.
our board of commissioners and our solicitor haven't noticed and tried to negotiate these changes.
Yeah, I think
So
some of
all
them
we
would be
can do at this
agreeable.
point is
Yeah.
point them out one more time, I
Yeah.
think. And
Yeah.
what's gonna happen is gonna happen.
Yeah.
But the way the board leadership seemed to be reacting on Monday night, they're pushing hard to get this thing done in 2 weeks.
Can be done right.
In my
It just has to be done right. It's
Well,
not
I would
hard.
not be in favor then of pushing forward an agreement that's written in a sloppy manner.
Is there reasoning behind the rush?
This is, you know, I mean, a lot of this can be fixed at, you know, sitting at a kitchen table at night, you know, in a couple of hours. I mean, it's,
Or just the two
you know,
words.
and then maybe there's one or two substantive things that the parties
Right.
disagree on, and the commissioners say, what the hell, you know, we're okay with it, and that's just too bad for us. But a lot of it is just protect our, you know, the interests of the township residents and the township. You know, why are we giving so much away when maybe that's not even intended? But you never know who's gonna be on the board 5 years from now.
Exactly.
You know, there are a bunch of nice people on it now, but who knows what their leadership's gonna look like in 5 or 10 years.
Yep.
Either board,
Yeah.
commissioners or.
Yeah.
or
Well,
the
that's
other.
true.
Yeah.
No, we always have stellar people.
John, where are you gonna stand on this? I'll ask you straight out. Are you gonna support this, knowing the comments and the feedback
Well,
you've
I'm
gotten
going
from
to
this body?
talk to the Lisa and Jack about, especially about Mary's comment. You know, Jack's a lawyer, so if we have to put it off a couple weeks more, then the question becomes, do we have to go first reading and a second reading if we don't change anything substantive? So that's my intention, take that comment back to
Now,
them.
do we have real estate? Are you a real estate lawyer?
No, environmental.
Okay, but there actually are experts in real estate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that would be.
Nick, Nick,
Yeah, I'm just saying that would be someone who, if we're making a recommendation for something, that it should be reviewed by a lawyer
That's a
with
great-
expertise
Yeah,
in real
great
estate
point.
law.
You know,
It's a great
something
point.
And clean
on
it,
leases
and clean it
and
up to
contracts.
at least an acceptable standard of what's
That
acceptable
is a
by
good
the real estate law
Yeah.
lawyers.
That's a great point.
Jack's positioning on the Wawa, he wrote a.
beautiful, yeah.
And it's very thoughtful on all sides.
Mhm.
And so I would think is it just that this is not, he's not paying attention to this, or?
Well, Jack has actually been the one that's, he's not been 100% in favor of this, still isn't
Okay.
100%.
So he is, I mean, his position.
But I don't know that he's given it the kind of read that,
Well,
for that.
the commissioner should be looking at this very closely.
Yeah.
No,
And
we
they're not.
pay lawyers,
I mean, I'm just a Park and Rec board member.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's why we're here talking to you.
Those are good points, though. That, I think that's,
It's a great point. I will add that to the list, Chuck. Thank you.
So
Yeah, if you
even-
if you have issues with your hand and you, okay, and I go to see a foot doctor, okay, so I think we need to have, I believe that we need to have a specialist that's looking at this. That would be my
yeah, that would be.
only way I would say, yeah. Because oftentimes, what we do is we say, once it's reviewed by our solicitor, I'm good with it. Or once it's reviewed by a solicitor that has a background in real estate or has the expertise in real estate, I would be in favor of moving it forward. Once he cleans it up.
it's also an item in the township that a lot of people don't know about. They don't know
Most
what's
people
going
don't know
on.
about it.
They
I
don't.
mean, the fight over Wawa, that's taken a lot of interest and
Bandwidth.
residents and bandwidth, and so maybe Mary, he just doesn't have the time at this point. So, I mean, you ask anybody, just casually, they're like, what's going on? They have no idea what's going on at Will's.
Well, I actually
I mean, my
don't-
daughter thought it was still open.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
I actually don't believe that, and this is different possibly the way the commissioners and the school board are. I prefer that they can have opinions on it, and state it, and everything else, but an actual paid lawyer is the one that has to do this for.
Well, that's who did it.
Right, right.
I mean, this was all
No.
through John.
John, that's not correct. A paid lawyer on the township's benefit, to the township's benefit, did not review this.
Excuse me? John Rice?
He's a
is not-
solicitor. He's not an expert in real estate law.
Oh, that I agree with,
Right.
but.
Right, that's kind of.
And that's why I
But
said.
WPP hired a real estate lawyer to draft the lease. So, we
And
don't have an
it's really
advocate.
one-sided.
We don't have an advocate.
We can't do a gunfight with a knife.
And you want an
I love that
advocate.
expression.
That's the township wants an advocate. They want to protect the township. That
I
doesn't,
think so.
not that WPP wants to not do right by the township,
No, I think
but
they're very well intentioned. It's
No.
just this could create a lot of mischief down the pike.
Yes,
because it's-
yes, it could. All right, so, thoughts from
My last thought
anybody
is,
else?
I mean, I'm late to the conversation, but what is the great advantage for the township engaging in this? What is the advantage to the township?
Well, we have an asset
Mhm.
that is slowly going to dust. So this is a way to preserve that asset that is much beloved by the community and not well, we are contributing 1.6, 1.8. But other than that, it's someone else's responsibility. When the township operated it, it required staff time. So that affects budget, and so we have that benefit too.
But John, this is still gonna take up staff time, programming up at the Willows.
I don't think so.
I've talked to staff and that's not their opinion.
No.
I'd like to go on the record to say that the asset is the property, not the house. The asset is the view shed and the property that citizens can use and access, accessibility.
And the benefit with, well, I disagree. I have had many people tell me about wanting to save the mansion. So,
Yeah, I think there's
There are
probably a
a lot
pretty
of
split of opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
however, the other thing is, as you see with the OPP, except for those 25 events that they require in order to take care of maintenance in the organization, it's a community asset. It remains a community asset. It'll actually be more open after this plan than it was 5-10 years ago.
Not according to the language of the lease agreement, though.
Well-
You read the lease agreement, they can make it their private offices, and that's the end of it. They may lease it out for other events, or may make it available. It says may.
I'll
It
check
doesn't
that.
require, the
I
lease
didn't-
does not require WPP to make it available for anything other than they get their 25 events. They may do other things.
Right.
They may. And that's, hopefully that's just really bad drafting. I mean, but if it's
No,
not.
the intent was, not,
Could be really good drafting if it.
Well,
It's good for them.
no, they should be
Yeah.
required to make it, there's nothing in that lease that says you are required to make this asset available to Radnor residents or whoever, X number of days, X number of hours, whatever it is. There's nothing in there that guarantees a Radnor resident that unless they book a wedding or something like that, they have any access to the leased premises.
okay.
I mean, that's pretty outrageous. I'm hoping that was not the intent, because there's other stuff that's
That is
not
not.
binding
Absolutely
that
not.
contradicts that, but it's not
It's
in the
not.
lease agreement, it's not a requirement. And if there was ever a dispute, we would lose that.
Sure.
Because of the four corners of the document.
Mhm.
But there's also an opportunity, because one of the pieces we're talking about is the extended lease, correct? So we don't really have much of an impact on part of the lease that's already been signed. But as it continues on after the 10, we could have. So if the language is not agreed upon, cleaned up, that we don't get that requirement, you could put it in after 10.
If the board wanted to,
They could amend the
they
whole
could
thing.
say no to 25 years unless we get items 1 through 15 changed,
Yeah, but except.
and then negotiate that way.
Yeah.
And then WPP say no, and then the township wouldn't have to agree to 25 years, and WPP would either move forward or they back out and give their 90 days notice.
Except for the fact that, from what I'm understanding, the township's ready just to move on and sign.
That's in my opinion, from watching the meeting Monday night, yes.
Well, and they could redo the whole lease if they wanted to. I mean, you
Yeah.
have
Oh,
to
they
both
could if
sides
they
agree to
wanted
it.
to,
I mean,
but-
they could just say,
Right.
we mutually agree to, amend this
Start
thing,
over.
like, amend 50% of it or something. There's nothing that prevents them from renegotiating or coming up with different terms from something they agreed to before. They have to agree to it, but they can fix some of the defects that are in there now,
Right.
or that are, in the 2018 agreement.
Well, in the original.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for any motion or anything. I guess what we were asked to do is provide comments.
Right.
I've heard comments tonight that I'll add to the written comments that Mary and Bill and Jim and I provided. With your approval, I will send an email to Lisa as the chair of the board. I will copy other board members. I'll copy our board. I'll copy the solicitor and obviously township staff. I will repeat our recommendation from last year so that that's up front. Then I'll indicate the comments in here as well, including Chuck's comment, which was a great one about a real estate attorney reviewing this thing before anything moves forward. And I will send that on as our public stance on it if we are in agreement on that course of action. If we're not in agreement on that course of action, I'm open to other course of action.
No, that sounds reasonable.
Great.
Bill, you okay with that?
Yeah, there was one other thing before we close that on, about the sublease agreement. I'm not familiar with lease agreements that well, but they shall not assign or sublease any portion of the lease premises without first obtaining written consent of the township, which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld or delayed. I was considered, is that standard language?
Yeah.
It is,
for
but
rental
one of my
agreement?
comments was to take out, which will not be unreasonably withheld, because that's a matter of opinion. And if the
Yeah,
township
live
says
with that.
no, the township should be able to say no, and not have to worry about what's reasonable and what's not.
That was my concern. To
Yeah,
whom does this
that's-
apply?
That's in
and-
one of
and
my
what-
comments
okay,
as well.
okay.
I don't know if Mary pointed that out, so.
Yeah, and there's some contradictory, ambiguous language too about what goes to mediation and arbitration and what doesn't, because sometimes it says final decision, that's it, it's WPP, and then there's this provision about arbitration when there's a dispute. Well,
Right.
does that include things where you gave yourself unilateral
Which-
rights or
which
not?
disputes would go that way.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Maybe if I could just say,
Please.
I know staff made a lot of recommendations. I think John knows this stuff, John Rice. I think you've got a partner here. Careful, watch what I say. It's very fragile on this because languages and that become big issues with them. I agree with that issue that shouldn't be reasonably withheld, which means what's reasonable. I think there's a lot of concerns that sit with this agreement. And it's not as though, and I know I've been pegged by people that I just want to take the mention down and not save it. That's completely false. But I think when you look to put an agreement together, you protect. As the owner, you protect your interest in this, and not those of somebody else. And I think, as John knows, we have a lot of bad agreements with the township that we still deal with all the time that we have to recover. And this one, we've got to be as fair as possible as we can on this. I think John hears what your comments are, and we'll share those with the board.
Absolutely.
Is there an absolute timeline that this has to be approved on the next meeting? I don't believe there
No.
has to be.
There was a
They haven't raised the time
desire.
in a year, so
Yeah.
2 weeks or a month or 2 months isn't gonna make a whole lot of
I think
difference.
a lot of those points that you talk about, that we had talked about, in 6 months, you've got to be where you need to be. And in 1 year, if you haven't started construction, we're done. Because we've been now 7 years, 8 years now, the place hasn't operated. And like John said, I mean, it's taken its toll, as the word is. And some of those numbers and that they come up with the architect that we had, I mean, they're just not realistic of where they're at. But just as many concerns that you have, I think we have just as many concerns. And I think the board hears it. One thing I will say that I appreciate that was changed was they wanted us to pay for all the utilities and take care of everything until there was a C of O issue, which that could be 4 or 5 years from now. The issue that there was a big change now is upon commencement of the lease, which means as soon as it's approved, you're on the hook, we're out. Because you had people air conditioning that place, figuring we're not paying for it, you leave the lights on, you heat it, whatever. And, but we were all on the hook for that, and I think that's a big move to get away
That was a
from
bit
it. But
important.
you know, you've got them that they got an opinion that every time there's a change made, it's against them, it's to pick at them or whatever. The issue is trying to be fair to the township. Something should come out of here where we're not thrilled, but they're not thrilled either. Because at the end of the day, we've got our programs that want to run down there, and we should have a priority to say, here's our dates.
Yeah.
Right.
You work,
Right.
you
Yeah.
work from there.
You can have
to
25, but
where-
we'll pick
Yeah.
our dates first, then you can figure out where you're
There's
gonna
not
fill
a
in.
whole
That was
lot.
what was
It's not like Tammy has like 30 events a
No.
year where you can say, okay,
No.
you're gonna bind us up and tie us up in the
No.
prime rental season. So for the
It's a handful of
that we
events,
should
exactly.
have.
And I want to correct your prior brain fart.
Of mine?
Skip, no, mine.
I have lots of brain farts.
Skip is a member of the board, he's not the township's
Oh, he's not the
appointee.
township.
Chris Hatch is the other.
I don't know, Chris. Okay.
I think the
One-
biggest fear that we've had is that, you get your hooks into it, and then does it ever get developed, or you're sitting here 8 years from now or 9 years from now saying we're still
doing the same thing.
What are we doing? And I know we tried to get the leased premise out wider because, like snow removal and that, like John talked about, I mean, we can't be on call shoveling sidewalks and steps in the parking lot when I'm sure the residents of Inverary, Round Hill are going to say, wait a minute, why do those streets look so great there, but ours haven't been touched? So as you know, our staff isn't growing in public works. So, and it's just those things where we're, like, you've got to take care of those, because the issue even came up about, how about the roads in and out? Or is it just cut off at the entrance at the line of demarcation then?
They wanted the township to clean their gutters.
So, and I think and that was one of the other discussions that was had on Monday about, where when do you don't plow, do plow? If there's events going on, what level? Because if there's a different level that we will plow at, depending if you got people walking from that parking lot up the hill, you're gonna have to have that salted a whole different way than what we would do. So there's a lot of.
Because I know, I used to work for a municipality, they close parks when it snows.
Yeah.
That's it. Boom, you're closed because we're concerned about the safety of our streets first. And then when that's all done, then we would switch our efforts to that, and then it would be reopened. But you don't put your limited manpower to work that's gonna benefit one particular event or group or whatever, at the disadvantage of the rest of the town. So I agree with you with that.
I want to circle back. John earlier said that the
Well, that's
sort of, they take care of the inside, we take care of the outside. And from what I read from this, they have powers of final decision-making on what goes on inside that building for construction and design. That's the way I read this. And if we didn't agree, they have final rights of approval. If there were certain things that, I mean, codes of course would be adhered to, but if there were certain design elements that the township felt were inappropriate or not sustainable or not long-term viable, that's another issue that sort of popped up from the drafting that I was not happy with or, comfortable with.
They put gargoyles out on top. We couldn't control those.
That could be an improvement.
Yeah.
But no, there's a number of issues that sit within that. the document.
Again, being new to the agreement, these are the things that just jumped off of me, the 5 or 6 things that we seem to keep coming back to.
So I know John has not seen some of them because
I was on vacation.
he was on vacation when some other changes were made, but it's still, there's a lot that sits within that. I appreciate you taking the time to look
Yeah.
at it because you've all put a lot of time and thought into
Absolutely.
this. A lot of time and thought, and it's greatly appreciated, it really is, because it gives us a lot of points to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Chris, make sure you send that to the solicitor. That we can get that.
I will.
Needs to go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Claire.
See you guys.
Talk to you soon.
That's the lady on the video.
Yeah.
Saw her on YouTube.
You did a nice job.
You did too. Really good.
You set the standard, and I was like, oh boy, I got it. So long.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Old business. Commissioner Abel asked that we have another conversation about the ban of smoking in township parks and the implementation of the Young Lungs at Play program.
I thought you guys
Let me finish. We discussed this at 2 or 3 meetings in a row, probably in the fall and maybe over the winter time. We had a presentation from the gentleman at Young Lungs, and my recollection from going back to my notes was that this board determined that we did not feel that there was a problem with smoking in parks that merited making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. We did not feel that even if a law was passed to do this, that the township had the funds to put up and maintain all the signs. And there was a question about how you would enforce this as well. But I think the main item that we recognized was that, and Tammy gave us some feedback on this, has not been a lot of complaints about smoking in parks from people, and that this issue's never come up other than what Commissioner Abel has requested. So he requested we discuss it again tonight. I'm not so inclined to do that. However, I'm happy to do that if anybody here would like to have further conversation about it. I think Commissioner Abel's goal is to have us make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners that we would be in support of the township passing this Young Lungs at Play program and the ordinance to go along with that. Nobody on our board has ever made a motion or had one second to make that. So I'm happy to open the conversation, or we don't have to have any conversation if we don't think there's a reason to. I'll open it up to the floor.
I don't think we have to legislate for behaviors that we're not having issues with, myself. I think the groups themselves, for instance, Little League, okay? If I was a parent and I saw people that were smoking outside of the batting cage or over here or over there, I would then go over and talk to the guy in charge of the Little League and say, well, I actually would go over and talk to the person who's having a cigarette there and say, you know, this is not a good idea for you to smoke here. Could you go someplace else, please? But if I was uncomfortable doing that, there's the Little League people that I could then go talk to and say, hey, can you do me a favor? Could you go talk to that guy? He's smoking. It's not a good idea around. And I think a lot of people, most of the people realize that. And that if you were smoking and you didn't realize that, if it was brought to your attention, I think you would leave. So I'm not in favor of.
I think one of the lines that we came up with, our summary conclusion was, we have a solution looking for a problem.
Right.
And
I still see
I
that.
agree with you that in my 20 years of living in the township and working with Little League and every other activity, I've never seen anyone smoke. And if they did, they were outside being respectful on the street or the curb or something. And I've never, I can recall smelling smoke maybe once or twice in the past 15 years working with children in the township. So again, I think it's more than we need.
Yeah, I would say 30 to 40 years ago, it was more of an issue.
Oh, sure.
Cigars were more of an issue. A lot of I remember many guys that were up right on the fence lines watching games, and they all had, not they all, but a lot of people had cigars and things. It kind of has passed a little bit. If Tammy were to have brought it forward and say, you know, we're having an issue in the parks, we need to deal with this, it's affecting our kids, that would be a different story, in my opinion. So I agree with you.
Well, it was interesting that the Board of Health also looked at the issue, and as much as they were anti-smoking, it came down to the dilution flow and how do you quantify that and where would you put the part smoking area, because you still got to have that, and they didn't even recommend it.
Or anything from your perspective on this?
No, I'm with Bill there. I haven't seen it. I mean, the various times I go out to the ball fields and everything, I don't see smoking as a big issue. I don't see it at all.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll move on. Tammy, items B through F are project updates, and so what I would say is, if there's something substantive that has, it's always a hard word for me to say, has changed since last month, we'd love to hear about it, but there hasn't been any changes. Don't feel that you need to go through each one of those projects. We're happy to go through them if you'd like to, but if there hasn't been any kind of real changes from last month, then we don't need to address it.
Okay, well, Edmonton is moving, no big changes there, other than we do expect to get the plans, the submittal plans to go to our building department by the end of June. So within the next couple of weeks we should have those, so that's good, continues to move. O'Connor, Warren, Phillip Home park improvements will go to the Board of Commissioners for award of the project on June 24th. Okay, so that's pretty big news. And the great part about that is I anticipate everything within budget, and all of the alternates will be awarded as well, which includes the pickleball court.
They're within the budget
And the
number.
basketball court, and the upgraded dugouts to Phillip Home.
That's
So
great.
we're working through that.
So they're all going to fit within the budget?
Should, yes.
Wow.
Working through
Fabulous.
that,
Well, I
anticipate
wouldn't have
within the
expected that.
budget, so
That's
it's
great.
great. So we are finalizing some of the details of the bid and working with the prospective low bidder in which the award would be given to. So hopefully, you
That's
know, we
exciting.
can
That's
do
good news.
the meeting there on the 24th, and then we start moving, and then maybe by July might even have a timeline to talk about. Fenimore continues to move along. Enki opened in time for Memorial Day. I think there was problems with one roofing panel that had to be replaced, so that was good. And then as far as the rack does remain closed. My understanding is that the final report, based on the assessments that occurred within the facility, is in hand. I believe our township engineer, Steve Norsini, is in receipt of that. I think he just received it here shortly, so we'll be reviewing that soon and reconvening a meeting with the school district staff and the flooring company, hopefully in the coming weeks, to decide how we move forward.
Tim, with regard to the rack, would you keep me posted if there's any changes in between
Absolutely.
now and our July meeting, just so I'm on top of that, or if you need me or like me involved at all?
moving into a litigation at all? Or is it gonna be resolved?
I don't know yet. I think once we see the report and we understand, you know, what corrective measures are appropriate and can be made within, you know, reach of the flooring company and willingness of the insurance company, obviously, to compensate. I think until we know more on that, it'd be hard to make a decision. Hopefully not.
Yeah. Okay. Great, thank you.
Is there any other old business that anybody with this board would like to bring up this evening? Any other issues that we haven't addressed? We have no public this evening. First time in a long time we haven't had any public here, so I guess that's it. Tammy, is there anything else that we've missed or you'd like to discuss this evening?
No, just appreciate your ongoing support and looking forward to a good summer and lots of great things. If you get a chance, have an opportunity to come out to them, that'd be great. Thank you.
I was at the Wheels of Wayne was fantastic.
Oh, you know, you gotta bring
He
that
was
up
a
again.
judge.
I didn't get to go.
He
and
was
you
a
gotta-
judge.
You wanna see pictures?
You were,
thought the judging was
a pulled
superb.
pork
The
The
judge.
judging was, I was judge for the pulled pork sandwiches actually.
Ooh, that's a
And
good,
that
that's
was
a good
yeah,
gig.
I could not judge the.
And who was the winner?
You know what?
Cornerstone.
Where were they? Where are they?
Cornerstone is at West and, right at West and North Wayne.
Yeah.
They're right there on the
Along the
corner.
back
The
up to the tracks.
northwest corner there.
What's going down below,
It starts to
right?
go under, it's
Starts
almost,
going-
it's almost going under the
Under the train
Yeah,
tracks,
it's the
yeah.
very end store at
Yeah,
the top
on
of
the-
the strip
on
of
the top.
stores, right along there.
Okay.
Where the ice cream parlor used to be, on the corner?
No.
There,
other side,
there was a
across the
coffee
street.
place there for a while. and
Well,
then
they
had
actually
On the
used to
right
have-
side.
They used to
On
have
the right.
ice cream there.
It's on the
but
north,
Right above-
north side of West.
Across,
Oh, that's
catty corner
easy.
to the pub?
Yes,
Not
right
Catty
across the
Corner.
street.
Across the street.
Oh,
Across the
okay,
street.
Right
okay,
across the
okay.
street. There's a pizza place below it,
Okay.
so right above there.
My choice was Vinny's, the new place. They had a very traditional Sicilian style pulled pork sandwich.
Sicilian?
Sicilian pulled pork.
Sicilian style pulled pork sandwich.
That sounds,
Excellent.
oh, that makes
I'd
sense.
like a South Philly.
It's the
Same
same.
with Carolina,
I gotta get
Sicilian,
that-
what is
I gotta get
that?
that.
Extra vinegar, what is that?
We do our own really well.
It's a little sweet. I'm a traditional kind of a person. I like that Sicilian style pulled pork sandwich. You can't beat it. Good provolone cheese.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Roger,
We're
Roger.
adjourned.
Roger.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Everybody's hungry now.